want to invite three good friends of the house. We're going to have two of our guests physically, and our dear friend Jeffrey is going to connect with us in a second. So meanwhile, please welcome Silvia Bruno, Chief Innovation and Technology Officer at Elewit Eléctrica. Let me get there. Take a seat, please.
Yeah, okay.
You choose. You're at home. And let's call in also our good and dear friend, Fernando Sandoval, Manager of Innovation at Enel Hub. Fernando, pleasure having you again, as always.
Hello.
Here we go.
Great to see you.
And on this other side, I hope we, oh, wow, that was fast. Jeffrey, thank you very much for joining us. Jeffrey Char, founder and CEO of JC Ventures. And now that I have you here, thank you for the time schedule, because as always, connecting different areas, different regions, there's always someone that gets a little bit screwed. So thank you very much, Jeffrey. Your track record is impressive. You've sold companies, you've created so many companies. Now you're devoting your expertise and your funds to invest in accelerating the energy transformation, right, and the acceleration of this. So I wanted to know, and this is kind of a unique question that you probably have a very unique perspective on this. How do you see the pandemic affecting energy transition? We had a certain trend, so I would love to get your take on what are you seeing on the ground as someone that's very involved in this. How that has affected it?
Wow, okay, that's a pretty big question. I think it really depends on which part of the pie you're looking at. The energy market is a huge market, of course, and I have two different companies that I'm working with right now. One is based in Japan. We're an energy retailer here, and the pandemic actually hasn't really hurt us much. We're very fortunate that we focus on the residential market, and with people working from home, we're actually selling more to the existing customers. It makes getting new customers more difficult, of course. But I think in general, the pandemic is really causing everyone to reevaluate kind of the norm. And you're seeing an acceleration of a trend towards digitization and whatnot. For one of my other companies in Southeast Asia, it's very difficult because I can't travel. And so I really need to be on the ground visiting in Cambodia and Myanmar and whatnot, but it puts things on hold. So it's a double-edged sword.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep pushing here with a challenging question. We are seeing kind of very different speeds and very different models towards several industries, including the energy industry, between Asia, Europe, and the US. So do you see big differences between what you see on the ground there in Asia and what you see maybe in Europe and the US? Are they big differences, or everyone is kind of aligned towards an energy transition?
I would kind of divide it a little bit different. Geographic distinctions are less important, I think, than, say, the development stage of the local market. So in developed economies, a lot of the infrastructure has already been built. And so the transition to the distributed model with renewable energy is inevitable, but it will probably take longer in these markets because we've already invested in the infrastructure. In other markets where they're less developed, especially where you've got energy access being the main problem, this will actually accelerate the trend because in these places, they'll just leapfrog what we've done in developed economies. Instead of building out centralized large grids, they'll probably build much more distributed mini grids and whatnot, where you generate the power locally and use it locally. So that trend is actually, they'll probably leapfrog us in that sense by perfecting those technologies and lowering the cost.
Wow, that's impressive. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. We're very honored having your perspective, very, very unique perspective, and we really appreciate you being here with us. And wait for me for a second. I'm going to switch sides and talk with our guests here physically. How are you guys doing? Good?
Right.
Excited?
Yeah.
Good. So, Silvia, I'm going to start with you, that you're closer to me. So, big question. I know this is a challenging one. Is energy transition happening fast enough?
Oh, such a good question.
Ah.
Energy transition, I think it could be called as a moonshot in innovation terms. So what does it mean for us in the Red Eléctrica group? Means that we have such a big challenge, and that means that in 2050 we have 0 emissions. And that means also the decarbonization of the economy. So this means 100% of introduction of renewable energy, and also including the supply of electricity in sectors that it's not so present today. So we have also goals in 2030 and 2040. Spain, I think, is a big example of introducing renewable energy, but I think we need to push forward and push more to facilitate technology solutions. For that, we are working on that.
I hope they hear you, but Spaniards are pretty loud. We hate change, so let's see how we manage that. And kind of connected with that, Fernando, I wanted to ask you, like, as we were talking with Jeffrey, you know, the pandemic is accelerating this, and the trends were already there, right? But this is kind of accelerating and putting a sense of urgency around this notion. So how are you guys adapting to this change? Because it's a pretty brutal one, right?
So COVID-19 has shown us that innovation pays off. That is something that we have seen in the group. Because thanks to the work we have done in innovation all the previous years, we have been able to continue operating worldwide and be resilient in this time. So this has been great for us. But COVID-19 has also shown us that we have to keep pushing, we have to be tackling even harder towards energy transition and speeding it up. So, and we are also convinced that we can rely on startups, we can work with them in able to get this goal. So that's why we have launched Reshape, that is a global call for startups, where we are tackling challenges either resulting from the new scenario or that have become more relevant because of it. And these challenges cover all of our value chain, from power generation all down to delivering better products and services to our customers and to society. So my message here is to invite all the startups to join us before November 30th. That is when the call ends.
I was just thinking, like, one day at your office has to be pretty crazy, like with all the urgency and all this stuff coming in. So thank you very much. And kind of connected to that, what are you guys doing? What kind of projects can you talk us about that kind of showcase this situation, this transition towards around energy?
So for us in Elewit, we are the technological platform from the Red Eléctrica group. We are working in a lot of projects and initiatives with all the tools and nurturing all the tools that an interconnected and global and diverse ecosystem brings to us, like, for example, with our corporate venture capital, with our venture builder, with our venture client, and also with the innovation projects that arise from the internal knowledge. So giving us some examples, for example, we are working with some hybrid storage solutions. One of the startups that were having here the pitch, we are working with this because this is the way for introducing and giving flexibility service to isolated electrical system. Also, we are working to testing in real time, introducing intelligence to our lines within sensors for having the capacity transportation in the real time to allow us to introduce more renewable energy. And also we're having, this is only some examples, working with some satellite image for knowing and for having more predictable about energy consumption in self-consumption and in photovoltaics.
Well, you touched me there. I'm a big fan of space technology, so okay, we need to talk afterwards. Connected with that, and Fernando, I want to know your perspective on this side. We keep talking about, you know, startups need to work with the corporations, but how hard it is for a startup to work with a corporation? If you could give 2 tips very quickly.
Very hard.
It is hard,
so
right?
the point here is that by now we all have proven that startups and corporates are able to and must work together. That this collaboration is key if we want to bring solutions into reality at scale, benefiting both the corporates and startups. So we see that all major players in our industry are working already with the startups, different vehicles and models to do that. For instance, in our case, in Enel and Endesa, we have a venture client approach. So what we want is to engage into win-win collaboration relationship with the startups, with the goal, the ultimate goal, to having them become suppliers of Enel or any of its companies. So far, we are working already with more than 300 startups, out of which we can consider 60 already scaling up in the group. So it means they are already suppliers of Enel. And most importantly, these startups have received more than 40 million euros in revenues from Enel for the POCs, for the pilots, for the commercial relationships we have developed. But the point here is that even though we are a large company, our resources and our teams are limited.
Yeah.
So it means that for an entrepreneur, it is not only presenting a solution or a technology, it is identifying use cases that we can apply within our company.
Yeah.
This way, it is much easier our people to get interested in these solutions and further explore other use cases, and not even that. Also defining these new cases with the entrepreneurs so that they can have success cases to go to other customers, thanks to the work they do with us.
Well, we need to talk about that. One day I'm going to sit you here and I'm going to start pitching you startups and see if we can fit the use case to you guys.
That's what I do every day.
Well, Fernando, Silvia, thank you very much for joining us here on the stage. Thank you so much. Jeffrey, thank you so much also for joining in the conversation. Pleasure having all three of you.